Hey there guys, I was about to make a video on Ubuntu 18.04 LTS Windows subsystem for Linux when I realized I forgot my credentials to that. So before I make a big in-depth video on Ubuntu 18.04 LTS Windows subsystem for Linux, I need to be able to get into all that, right? And after a bit of trying to figure out exactly how to do that, I just wanted to make a quick video of my findings. It's very simple, but kind of hidden. Doesn't really, let's say for example, you already have it installed, and here is my 18.04. But if I, for example, want to do a sudo apt get update, I need the password, right? I don't know the password. What am I gonna do? Not that crazy. We're just gonna go into PowerShell, and we're gonna do Ubuntu 18.04 space config space, and it's gonna be dash default user. Actually, I believe it's dash dash default user root. And now if I alt out of this, exit, and I go back into it, now I'm root, right? Before it came up green and it said that my username was GoApe, because that's me, GoApe. And now if I wanted to do a password GoApe, I can go ahead and change that password with no issues. And then if I'll come back to here and switch this back to GoApe, Ubuntu, and now I'm here, I can do sudo apt get update and put in the new password. Whoops. Apt get update. There we go. So that's a good preface to what this is, but essentially this video is on Windows subsystem for Linux, which basically just shows you a way to get a bash or a Linux operating system on your Windows machine. So in our last video, we spoke a little bit about virtual machines and having the ability to have a virtual machine on a native application called Hyper-V, right? And we installed the CentOS one. But what if you don't really want to install a virtual machine and you just want a bash shell, just an area for you to go ahead and maybe do something with OpenSSL, or you want to convert some WAV files to different bit rates, and there's a really easy tool to do that on Linux actually. So you want to just have access to that type of environment, and you don't really want to make another whole system and go through the installation process. Well, if you go over to the Windows Store and you just type in Ubuntu, there is the Ubuntu 18.04 LTS, the regular Ubuntu. I'm not too sure why they have this one in particular, but then this is the newer version, 20.04 LTS. So obviously this is basically just Ubuntu, right? So everything is as it would be in a regular machine. It's just a subsystem, but specifically meant for Linux, which is why it's called the Windows subsystem for Linux. In here, you have a completely segregated network, segregated storage area. Everything is just by itself. You do have access and visibility into it, and that is through wherever I made my original. Let's just look at DFHH. Yep, see, okay, here we go. Actually, I have the opposite. So I have this system mounted on this system, and we'll see that by doing the df-h, you'll see the all of the drives that you have. So you see down here, I have the C drive and the E drive, and they're mounted on Mount C and Mount E. So if I do cd or change directory, go to Mount C, here we go. If I'm in my C drive, I have all my files, right? So let's just say, you know, I wanted to manipulate a specific .wav file. I could just traverse this directory here and just go into users and then home, and then in here I could probably go to music, I don't really have any music in here, but let's just say I did. Then you could do, leave it socks dash in, and then put test.wave dash out, and then the file.wave, and then whatever bitrate you wanted, and stuff like that. So that is an easy way to access Linux or have a Linux environment on a Windows 10 machine without going through very many steps at all. And while we're at it, we're actually just going to go through the process of installing it, because I don't have the 20.04 LTS version yet. I only have the 18.04 LTS. So we're just going to go ahead and click get, click install. You're going to have a profile already signed in, hopefully. If not, we'll ask you to sign in with a Microsoft account. So that'd be the only thing that could pop up other than what's shown here. Then we hit launch. Now it's going to install. It'll take a few minutes, about just as long as it took to update. Maybe a little bit longer because this is the newer version, so I'm not too sure anymore. So yeah, we just kind of let this do its thing. Yep, and here we go. Now it's asking for a Unix username. So go ape. I'll put the same password as before. And here we go. And you'll see that the IP address for this one, you have a couple different IP addresses, right? You have a couple different Ethernet options here. We have, let's look at this one as well. IPA is the quickest way of doing any type of movement there to try and see where you're at. So you'll see that this has 192.168.1.45. This also has 192.168.45 and .1 and .1. So what you'll notice is that all of these are going to share the same network, right? Because it's technically not a separated machine. So these can't all really interconnect and be separate. Like one can't be a database server and the other an HTTPD server or Tomcat, Apache Nginx. You can't really have that kind of interconnectivity between the machines because they're technically just PowerShell, but Linux. So it's different than a full-on virtual machine. This is just a quick, oh, I want to test something out with OpenSSL, or, you know, just you want to maybe have the ability to access this IP address, right? The .45. Like one of the things you could do is make the directory, let's just say, for example, you want access to your C drive via SSH, right? So you can then expose SSH on these interfaces via port forwarding on your public IP address through your router. And we can get into that in another video, but essentially you can then just SSH into your public IP address and end up into the Linux box, which then has accessibility into your Windows directory, and you get all your stuff. And that's pretty much it for this. It's pretty straightforward, very easy to install, very little setup, just a username and password, and this could be your very first exposure to Linux, and it's very easy to kind of be able to just type a bunch of things into here and see what happens. And I think it's very beneficial to, if you're thinking about trying out Linux and you're afraid of the command line, you can't really break anything in here, and if you do, you just uninstall it, reinstall it, and you're good to go. So as always, just leave a like and comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think.